And welcome back to the Constitutionals Podcast. I'm your host, Chad White. If you didn't know, this is the only podcast on the internet where I sit down behind a mic and I try to extend it as far as I can because I forgot to do that before. And welcome back to the Constitutionals Podcast. Okay, how do I sound? Everything good? I'm out of breath. I just came back from seeing Creed 2. Very out of breath. Wonderful film. This morning I woke up. I said, I'm going to go to the movies because I'm not working today. I'm going to go to the movies right after I leave the gym. Not right after, of course I gave some time. I'm going to go to the movies after I leave the gym. That's going to be my day. Because it takes a whole time to get over there. And they got to drive back and you got to sit down and watch the movie. Creed 2, fantastic film. Great follow-up to the wonderful Creed. Speaking of which, I watched that movie this morning. I watched them both back to back. I urge you to do so. Your body will be filled with so many emotions, as mine was. The first movie, which I've seen, a dozen times by now, but I love that movie to death. I mentioned where I watched the first one 3 times when it came to Redbox that first week. I watched it 3 times in one night, which is insane for anybody, for any human being. I watched it once at like 8. I watched it again from like 10 to like 1. I don't know, 10:30 to 1 o'clock. I think that's what it was. Then I went to sleep. I woke up. I watched it again before I went back to Redbox to return it. Wonderful film. Creed 2. I hate when you. I listen to a lot of podcasts, of course, obviously. And one of the podcasts I listen to is Pop Culture Happy Hour from NPR. Those people are great. The Stephen Thompson and the rest of them. I don't know these people on this podcast, but those people are great. Glenn Weldon, those people are wonderful, smart, have a lot to say. I think they're jaded because when they were talking about Creed 2, they had less positive things to say about it than they've said, I don't know, about a Marvel movie or the Mary Poppins movie. The episode that just came out today, which is fine. You can have your likes and your dislikes and stuff, but I think one of the things, before I get to Creed 2, I think one of the things of criticism, which is why I stopped reviewing things on cpluscomedy.com, which is the only reason why you get just video stuff now, essentially, and interviews, is because with all this stuff, one of the topics I'm talking about today is this peak TV stuff, and I'm going to talk about peak TV one more time this year. I don't think I talked about it this year. Last year I talked about it a whole bunch, or the year before that there was definitely a lot. But this peak TV stuff and all these movies coming out that are just big blockbusters, the people are and they only expect one thing. And expect it to be good or bad, and they go with these expectations and or the lack thereof, and when these things don't meet their expectations, they're hated. People can't. It's tough for. It's weird. It's strange because everybody has to be a critic now, and everybody has to have their own opinions, and make it so easy with Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and all these other things and YouTube and all these other things and all these other avenues for people to put their opinions out on. They have their little followings. It's like I'm taking it away from a little bit. They have their little followings, and then they basically just crap on something, or they just praise it. Like, they praise. I'm going to take 2 Ryan Coogler projects. I'm going to take Black Panther, and I'm going to take Creed. One of them is one of my favorite movies of all time. Dollars to Donuts, one of my favorite movies of all time. The other one is a Marvel movie that ended the same way the first Marvel movie ended, with the main hero fighting a carbon copy of himself. And that is, these things have their merits. These superhero movies have their merits. Black Panther, had a mostly black cast and mostly black production. Great, wonderful. Besides that, it's still a boilerplate Marvel movie, and I will say that to my grave. All right, look at Suicide Squad, and I'm not saying this is Marvel versus DC, but look at Suicide Squad. Look at X-Men: Days of Future Past, 2 of the best superhero movies I've ever seen. I'm dead serious when I say that. They're both weird. They're both strange. They both don't make sense a lot of times. They both have glaring issues, gigantic issues, but that is how comic books work. And I dare you to pick up a comic book from Marvel and DC or Vertigo or literally any one of the other imprints and say, oh, this doesn't have a lot of issues. Because a lot of I would say 99% of comic books have issues. Watchmen is one of the best graphic novels of all time. And it has a lot of pertinent issues that just don't make sense, against women and people of the time. It just doesn't. Anyway, that's all I'm saying. So back to the critics thing. Those critics have become jaded, is all I'm going to say. I think Glenn Weldon will admit that he's been a little bit jaded. I don't know these people again, but I've listened to them enough to know what they like and to know what they dislike and all that stuff, and how they want to be. And how they are when it comes to certain movies. Sometimes or TV shows or music or whatever. Sometimes you're surprised and they're surprised themselves and they like something. Sometimes they're not, which is most of the time. And here we are. And I remember during the Creed 2 episode, during Pop Culture Happy Hour, they basically said, which I totally agree with, that this movie aped a lot of the stuff that the first movie, Creed 2, aped a lot of stuff that the original Creed was doing, but it just wasn't as good, which is true. Ryan Coogler was only the executive producer because he was dealing with Marvel crap. So now we have these two movies they're virtually the same thing, made by virtually the same people, but it's just one director is different and the script is different, but I think it's fine. It's a good movie. I had a good time. I teared up during both. I teared up a lot during the first one. I teared up during both. I was moving in my seat. I was ducking and diving. People were talking during the movie. There's 4 people total in the theater and 2 people were talking in the back. What are you talking about? What are you talking? Just enjoy the movie. You have 2.5 hours with these people. Enjoy the movie. All I heard was in the background. Jesus. Let's move on really quick to Champaign, Illinois. That is the new what's it called? YouTube Red show. I believe it is I think they have one more. Wayne, I believe that's what it's called. They have one more until everything is free. Essentially, I mentioned this earlier, where their YouTube Red is their premium streaming platform. You get no commercials, plus you get original shows and movies and stuff. And that wasn't doing too well, so then YouTube said, "Okay, everything's free." But Champaign, Illinois stars Sam Richardson and Adam Pally as 2 of best friends whose third best friend became a huge successful rapper. They were all and his posse, and then that successful, who was Jay Farrow. Jay Farrow dies, and then Adam Pally and Sam Richardson are thrown back to the wolves of the world without all this money and all the glitz and glam that come with being a part of a group. Champaign, Illinois is very funny. If you have YouTube Red, check it out. If you don't, I think the pilot is free on YouTube right now. So definitely, it's a very funny show. Keith David is in it as well. Curtis Armstrong too. Danielle Schneider. Neil Casey, Rich Sommer. And it's just a bunch. It's a great show. Wonderful show. I think it's very, very funny. Very dirty. Definitely check it out. I'm trying to see who it was created by. Jordan Kahan and David Casp. David Casp is from Happy Endings, so definitely check it out. And you know how much I love that show. Definitely check out Champaign, Illinois. It's a wonderful, great show. 2 things I want to talk about really quick. I'm going to lump them both together. A Bad Mom's Christmas and Daddy's Home 2. Now with these. I want to preface this with recently in recent years, I have taken a stance for not watching things and that have people in it that are not good people, and that includes Mel Gibson. I don't know. I just typed in Mel Gibson, Daddy's Home 2. And I don't know if I've gone on record by saying, I think I reviewed it. I think Daddy's Home was a late review for me. But looking back, when I first watched it, I thought it was, just had a lot of problems in it, but ultimately over time, I think it's just a fine movie, whatever. Bad Moms, same thing, just a fine movie. Don't expect much. Obviously there's going to be sequels and stuff like that, but I watched Bad Mom's Christmas and Daddy's Home 2. One of them was a waste of my time. One of them I've yet to finish, and it is turning out to be a waste of my time. They're both horrible films. And I'm a guy who likes everything. They are pissing me off. They're unfunny. Daddy's Home 2 was written by Sean Anders and John Morris, and directed by, let me go ahead and see, Sean Anders. Bad Moms Christmas was written by Scott Moore and John Lucas, directed by both of those guys. I think I mentioned this on the original Bad Moms review. Soft filter on that movie made it look like garbage, made it feel like a Lifetime film. But now this one doesn't have it, but it's subsequently lost the charm and funniness of the first one. Mila Kunis, Kristen Bell, Catherine Hahn did a great job. Christine Baranski, Cheryl Hines, and Susan Sarandon felt kind of forced. The writing there was just, especially for Susan Sarandon, who was Catherine Hahn's mom, who is the whole crux of these two movies was that the grandparents came into the picture, the parents came into the picture, and that's the deal. Do we really need this in this world? I understand. I think I reported on News Time that there's going to be a Bad Moms-averse. Bad Moms universe. What a waste of my time. What a waste. It was Bad Moms Christmas. Avoid it if all you can. Just wasn't funny. Susan Sarandon's lines were too raunchy. When something's trying to be too raunchy, it's just a waste of time. It ends with a dance sequence, which is comedy writing code for, we don't know how to end this, so let's give him a dance sequence. Justin Hartley plays some type of male stripper who's, oh God. Okay. Daddy's Home 2. Don't even get me started. There is one sequence though, and then so Mel Gibson is basically playing Susan Sarandon too. They should have a spinoff with both of these movies, Daddy's Home 3 and and it has to be a Bad Moms holiday movie, so Bad Moms New Year's or Bad Moms St. Patrick's Day, where everybody gets together. Everybody from both of these movies, they get together. And they have to share like a cabin or something, and just keep them in this cabin. No other sets, no other locations. Keep them in this cabin. Let's see how that works. I think that'd be very funny. I've been thinking about this since the first movies came out, because it came out like around the exact same time. And if this happens, I think they should just do it. There is one sequence though, in Daddy's Home 2, that made me laugh so hard. I saw it in clip form when this movie came out, and I saw it in the movie, and it still made me laugh. The thermostat. There's a bit with a thermostat in only the first part, not like the last half, not the last third. There's a bit with a thermostat where Mel Gibson wakes up and he's sweating, and he goes to the thermostat and he's like, somebody touch it. It's like 85 degrees. Like, somebody touch the thermostat. It's sweating here. And he goes to John Lithgow, and John Lithgow's like, somebody touch the thermostat. And then Mark Wahlberg, and then Will Ferrell wakes up. He's like, somebody touch the thermostat. And then they're all freaking out because somebody touched the thermostat. Very funny. That's it. That's the whole joke. Okay, these movies are bad. Just don't watch them. Don't waste your time. Please don't. I have to finish Daddy's Home 2. It's been sitting in Amazon for years. And that's pretty much it. Oh, last thing, before we go to the second half of the show. Conan O'Brien's show got a little bit more information. This is courtesy of Pace Magazine. His show's coming back January 22nd, 2019. It's going to be half hour, of course, but here's a question I've had since the moment I heard they're going to do half hours. Is it going to be 4 days a week still? The answer to that is yes. Monday through Thursday. Here's a quote from them. It'll be airing Monday through Thursday, like all self-respecting late night talk shows should. Very good. I agree. I said this earlier when I read this morning when I was pooping. I hate editorializing and news articles, but that is the perfect line. Like all self-respecting late night talk shows should be. TBS tells us we can expect the same basic Conan O'Brien tomfoolery we've learned to love over the last quarter century, just in smaller doses. And of course, without the late night band, because Jimmy Vivino and the Basic Cable Band have been let go. And Andy Richter will be there too. I assume they're going to be doing more Conan Without Borders, which is great. So yeah, there we go. That's all we have to look forward to. And of course, there's a video that came with it on Team Coco's YouTube page. I suggest you subscribe to it. Also, keep an eye out for, they have a Team Coco Conan O'Brien archive going up. I mentioned this before. They have an archive going up later on next month sometime. So definitely check that out. Let's go to break. Let's take a break. Take a break. Cannot wait. Eliza, I've got so much on my plate. Alexander, okay. Your son is 9 years old today. I'll go stop. I do a really good Philippa Sue. I think that's her last name. Philippa Sue. All right, let's go to break. Okay, I'll see you in a second. Bye. And welcome back to the podcast. For you, it was no seconds. For me, it was 14 hours. It's taken me days to record this podcast. Hey, let's move on to really quick. I want to talk about, one of these was, I have 3 things I need to talk about. One of these was I'm going to time this like I said I would. It's too late. It's already started. One of these was the PTV thing, which was the main thing I want to talk about. Let's move on to something I talked about on News Time, doing a little follow-up story here because I am professional. Channing Dungey is going to work at Netflix. If you don't know who Channing Dungey is, I reported on this. It was a second story in my Megyn Kelly episode of News Time that I did, which was like 2 weeks ago at this point, 3 weeks ago at this point. Channing Dungey worked at ABC for just 3 years. She was a president of HBO. I just said the name. She was a president of ABC, only black female president in network TV right now, I think, or in broadcast, whatever. Just know that she was a black female and she had one of the biggest positions in the world for television. And she left after a couple of years. ABC lost Shonda Rhimes. They lost Kenya Barris. I assume Channing was fighting for them to keep them. They lost a bunch of other black people that were huge names there, including Cindy Holland. And now Channing Dungey is going to wait. Hold on. I think I might be wrong. I don't know if Cindy Holland is that person because there's another person. So 4 people left, including Channing, and one of them went to go work with Netflix, or 2 of them did. Okay, Cindy Holland is a white woman. I don't know why I said like Cindy Holland. I apologize. I'm glad I got that. So she left last month. And sources tell, this is from the Hollywood Reporter, that Dungey will also have a direct line to content chief Ted Sarandos. She's going to be starting in February. Now this is so she's going to be working. So guess who's at Netflix now? Shonda Rhimes, Kenya Barris, Gingy Cohan, Stephen DeKnight, and Marty Noxon. They all left cable broadcast in order to work for streaming, which is great for Netflix, and it's great for Amazon and Hulu too, and Crackle and all those other streaming networks, because it really does open up a door for this stuff to happen more for them as well, even if it's happening to the biggest streamer in the world. But this is, I definitely, if you're interested in this stuff, I definitely suggest you check it out, because Dungey, she was doing the best she could on broadcast. She couldn't obviously land a lot of stuff over there because broadcast is hard work. They have to appeal to so many people, whereas in streaming and basically in premium cable, essentially, you can appeal to a certain sect of person. This is, like I said, a very important move for ABC. I mean, and for Channing and for Netflix. For ABC, they lose out on a diverse voice. And like I mentioned, Pixar. I think I mentioned this for Constitutionals, but definitely for News Time. Pixar does not have any of those voices. Disney itself does not have any of those voices. It's very important that you're able to talk to a lot of people. But now we have, Netflix is going to be working with one of the biggest names in broadcast, biggest executives in broadcast. One thing I want to note is that they're putting her with Cindy Holland, who's been at Netflix for a minute. She's going to be what is her position? She's going to be the vice president or something. Vice president of original content or something like that. Co-vice president of original content. I think that they just made this position up. They saw that Channing was leaving, and then they were like, "Oh God, we gotta do something. Let's get her, and we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out." And they got to the meeting, and then Ted's like, original programming. We already have that. Oh, vice president. We already have that. Oh, what about co-president, co-vice president? I think that's so funny. Definitely check it out. In the notes. Moving on. There's been a little bit of trouble on. This is also from Hollywood Reporter. Now, usually, I also want to preface this story by saying I can hear the workers outside. It's very strange. But I want to preface the story by saying I never, along with the Megyn Kelly thing, I never usually talk about serious things. Like somebody dying or sexual assault allegations, which this next story is, but is also about writing and about somebody that I liked in a show I really like, and it's really lengthy and there's a lot of stuff in here, and it just sucks this had to happen. That's even happened, but here we go. This is from Hollywood Reporter. Smilf creator Frankie Shaw investigated over misconduct claims. Basically, the story is that the actress that plays Frankie Shaw's ex-boyfriend in the show, I don't know her name off the top of my head. Let's see. Okay, so she plays the love interest to Rafi. Her name is, oh my God, I can't find the name. Chad, what in the world is going on? Oh, Samara Weaving, something like that. I don't know. Hold on. Samara Weaving. This is embarrassing. This is so embarrassing. Samara Weaving, that's her name. I don't even have to look it up. Samara Weaving, wonderful actress, very funny on the show, but apparently she had this next upcoming season that's airing soon on Showtime. Apparently she had a couple of sex scenes with Frankie Shaw, who's the creator, writer, producer of the entire show, and they were mishandled by Frankie herself. And Frankie was reportedly inappropriate and not treating it like it was work or anything like that, and something like that. And Ms. Weaving decided to leave the show. She reported it to ABC's. ABC's, what are they called? ABC produces the show, but it's on Showtime, which is a CBS owned property. I don't know what it's called. Let's see. ABC, Disney's ABC Signature Studios. So Ms. Weaving and a bunch of crew members reported it to them. And then there's also been a rumor that Rosie O'Donnell, reportedly, who's on the show as Frankie's mother, reportedly called up ABC as well. And now Showtime's investigating the show and everything. And it just this really sucks. I can't really. It's just, somebody when Smilf came on, I was very entranced by it. I love the show. I love what Frankie was able to do. Tell a story of a young broke creative person living in an area where she wasn't allowed to be amazing, and now we have this type of thing where she, if this is true, got a little power and is not taking it seriously. But Shaw, this is from a Hollywood Reporter, remains in charge as Smilf assembles a third season writing staff. And sources say Showtime is in deep talks to put her at the helm of The Bell Jar, a limited series about Sylvia Plath. In July, ABC Signature announced a 2-year overall deal with Shaw, which I think they have to honor still, no matter what happens. They'll have to pay her out, buy her out, even if they said, hey, we're going to finish off the deal. And this is very important. This is why I kind of put this thing on here. THR has learned that multiple staffers have made complaints to WGA about both credit issues and alleged race-based separation, though no formal grievances have been filed. The Guild is said to be encouraging writers to file complaints and possibly to pursue litigation. Several sources say writers of color were put in different rooms from Caucasian writers and felt that their ideas were exploited without pay or credit. Frankie, of course, and her attorney, they say this is not true. Like, they say the allegations aren't true. They say that this race thing isn't true. Separating the races isn't true. But there's one of her friends, one of Frankie's friends, who was hired on the show. One of her family friends. Frankie's friend, Tahir Jeter, who was black and a college friend of Shaw's husband, Zach Strauss, who had no writing credit on the show, sent an email to THR basically saying that this person was worked on Smilf for a very short time, but they were put into a room with two black female writers, and to an office with two black female writers. And that person didn't think anything of it, as it seemed, quote, as it seemed that all of the other available offices / desks had been taken by the time I'd come aboard. So there's no real confirmation of this. But it is, you know what? It looks like this sex scenes were with, from Samara Weaving, were with the guy who plays Rafi, whose last name is Gomez. Okay. So, but Shaw was still treating it bad. Okay. Anyway, like I said, that show was a great show, and Frankie's a very smart person. But if this stuff is true, then it's just not the best. I can't really say more. I don't know really much more to say, but it's just not the best, and it's a shame. It's the same thing that happens. This stuff, you gotta be able to, if you want to, if you only take it so far, but for this one, for not being as serious as, oh God, I'm going to dig myself into a hole, aren't I? Let's just say that the worse the allegations get for anybody, the more difficult it is for a fan to separate the work from the creator. There we go. Can't watch Louis anymore. Great. Well, we knew Louis from the beginning. But I don't know. Let's see. Let's pick somebody. I can't. Okay, this is too much. Let's move on to the last thing. This is from Vulture. Almost 500 scripted shows aired in 2018, but we still haven't hit peak TV. So if you watch News Time 2 years ago, I talked about peak TV because John Landgraf talked about peak TV. He's the head of FX Networks. And he mentioned that there were, at one point, there were close to 500 shows on the air. I think it was like close to 400, something like that. 400 something. This year was a record 495 original scripted streaming cable and broadcast series were released. Original 495 in 2018. That's a slight increase from the 487 that came out in 2017. This is, again, all this research, of course, comes from FX Networks. They're the only ones doing this. Only people doing this. Basic cable networks hit the brakes on scripted series in a big way. Basically, that's what it's saying. Here are a few bullet points. This is from all these online platforms. They produced 160. That's 32% of the 495 scripted shows, originals. That beats broadcasts 146. That's 30%. Basic cable is 144, 29%. And pay TV networks like HBO and Showtime, 45 shows, 9%. Total scripted series output rose a modest 2% year to year. 2013, the year Netflix jumped headfirst into the originals game, it leapt 17%. It's a lot of shows. I'm looking at this graph. That's a huge show. A huge amount of shows. Broadcast TV was down, and paid cable was up 7%. They're relatively steady versus 2018. Basic cable production dropped a dramatic 17% this year. Let's keep going down. By contrast, streaming surged again this year, with online platforms growing their scripted portfolios by around 27%. A bit more than last year's 24% spike, but nowhere near 2016's 46% surge, which I would guarantee that all of that 46% came from mostly Netflix. And that was around the same time when, was that after Amazon's, that white dude at Amazon? A lot of the sexual accusations come from, or were about white dudes, but the white dude at Amazon who canceled Good Girls Revolt. Oh God, I don't know his name. Ryan James. Those are white people names. Shut up, Chad. But that's around the same time that a lot of those shows were brought in, just because Amazon and Hulu wanted to catch up to Netflix. Let's see. All right, the 2016 saw a number of outlets jump into the marketplace in a major way, including Facebook Watch, DC Universe, and 2018. Facebook Watch, DC Universe, and YouTube Premium jumped in this year. Well, YouTube Premium was already alive, and Facebook Watch already had a couple shows too. Streamers actually have a bigger market share than these numbers suggest, by the way. That's because FX doesn't count shows dubbed into English, like Narcos Mexico or Babylon Berlin. One of those I've heard of. One of them is called Babylon Berlin, even if they're produced by an American platform such as Netflix. If you count those shows as scripted originals, the total peak TV tally is in 2018 past 500 shows. I think they should count those because those are major shows, aren't they? Especially Narcos Netflix. Narcos Netflix. It's just an entire season of Narcos, but it takes place inside the Netflix building in Los Angeles. I think it's off of Hollywood Boulevard. Why do I know this? An entire season just all on those 15 floors. Streaming's rise to dominant player in the scripted space has been stunningly swift. In 2014, online services represented just 8% of all scripted production, the smallest of any platform. 4 years later, streamers have quadrupled their share on the market, up to 32%, with Disney, Apple, and AT&T all set to make the push into online platforms next year. That number should go even higher. So, like it says, scripted is becoming this huge thing. Huge. Scripted. I remember when just years ago, scripted shows weren't coming out as often, and it was all reality shows. I want to say maybe 10 years ago. It was all reality shows. All mostly reality shows. Sitting over there. But I mean, still, broadcast still has look at Fox. They still have a lot of reality shows, especially now that they're breaking away from the mainstay. But yeah, peak TV's hit us, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. I still do want to throw my hat into the ring. I have 2 show ideas that are ready to go. I have several scripts for both of them. Please, anybody, Disney, if you want them, I'll give them to you. I know I did just talk about the Black Panther. It's not a good movie. It's a fine film. Still, it's a superhero movie where the bad guy is the carbon copy of the main person. But anyway, we should definitely work together, Disney. Please. Hey, listen, if you like what you heard here, I don't know why you would. Check out the website, cpluscomedy.com, where I've got the latest news times, the latest podcasts, all that other stuff. Speaking of the podcast, this is the podcast. You can also listen to the back catalog of this show as well as the application podcast. Both live on that website as well as any podcast player you like. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, all the good podcast players. You can watch a video version of this show over there on youtube.com/C+comedy. You get nothing special for watching it, but you get to see my bright shining face. You can also watch News Time over there on youtube.com/C+comedy. News Time is the premier show for C+ Comedy, which is it's a show. It's like the Daily Show. Last Week Tonight, Full Frontal with Samantha Bee, except way less funny. Focus on one story. Try to tell jokes. News Time, like I said last week, for the next couple of weeks will be pre-tapes, a bunch of pre-tapes. This week's was a blooper reel, so you can definitely see that. I worked hard on it. Definitely check it out. It's very funny. I enjoyed it. I sing, I dance, I make jokes that are not intentional. Definitely check it out. Next week it'll be +5, which means I gotta make that episode for this podcast. That's a Christmas episode. It'll come out to Christmas. And then the week after that will be more bloopers. And then the week after that will be first episode of the year. So fingers crossed. Definitely check all that stuff out. And now, if you're on the audio version, stay tuned for something special. I interviewed Steve Lemmy and Kevin Heffernan of Broken Lizard Comedy Troupe. It's very true. It happened yesterday. And we had a discussion about their stand-up special that just came out a couple of weeks ago. This has been something, now that it's over, I can talk about it. It's something that I've been trying to set up for about 3 or 4 weeks now. It's insane. Like at least a month of me going back and forth with their people, with the publicists going, hey, are they available now? Are they available now? Are they available now? And finally they're available a week before Christmas. Definitely. I mean, so that interview will hopefully go up sometime next week. I don't know. We'll see when I have time. I'm going to be working for the next 2 weeks, essentially day in, day out over there at the, place where I work. Not gonna talk about it. You already know. If you listen to the application, you already know where I work now. But yeah, definitely listen to the end of this for a couple of minutes of us shooting the breeze. I will mention before I go, I didn't know I was going to tell the story, but I was talking. So I call into the conference line, and so I figure, at least one of the persons is going to be listening. And then I talk to the guys, and then I go, okay, guys, I think I got it. We're good. And then we're saying our goodbyes. And then right before the two of them hang up, because they're on 2 different lines, I hear like 3 other people hang up. And like I said, it's a conference line. So all I hear is people like disconnecting, like doot, 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 doot. Just quick disconnects. And I was like, what the heck? Who is listening? How many people were listening in? Like, what if I'd made a mistake? I'm always worried about that doing an interview. I'm always worried about messing up and saying something stupid where somebody curses me out. And now I'm worried about 1,000 people listening in. All it was So check out my interview with Kevin Heffernan and Steve Lemmy of the Broken Lizard Comedy Troupe. This is the breakout part for the Instagram. So definitely check it out. It's a great interview. It'll be coming out next week. Hopefully, I don't know. We'll see. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you. I love you. Follow us on Twitter at C Comedy. Follow me on Twitter at @ChadBlackWhite. Like us on Facebook. Continue listening to the I just hit the microphone. Continue listening to the podcast. YouTube.com/C Comedy. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Instagram @C Comedy. We'll find you later. Bye.